So
Fair,
how did
fair.
I just wanted to like talk to you because I wanted to know how you got started in TTRPG, how you started streaming, and how this all came to to be the Dead Aussie Gamer, with so many subscribers and followers and people doing things. And you have accomplished something I'm trying to do in New York, but we'll get to that. So how did you start out?
Oh. Wow. Well, so I've had a long journey. And like it's one of those things where spending just so much time like with my nose to the grindstone, just putting in the hard yards. A lot of people think that when you do a career in like gaming of any kind, that hey, just turn on a camera and play games, and people love you. And you know what? Some people are charismatic and can really do that. I am charismatic, but I'm definitely one of those people who, if you've watched my shows, if you've seen what I do, I grind very, very hard, and I've been doing so since I started the whole Twitch streaming journey, which I did kicking and screaming because truth be told, I actually didn't want my own channel originally. There was actually never a thing. So yeah, so
Really?
let's start with where I began. Like, so when I first started playing,
Yeah,
and it was 2010,
yeah.
and I remember this
It was a freak accident, and
so many cars were like
damaged
damaged
and
and
destroyed,
destroyed,
and
and
houses and things like that. It was
nuts. I've been very resistant because
but there was no going out,
gamer
there
at
was
the
no
time,
communicating
and
with people.
I
Power
played
went out,
things like Baldur's
everything was
Gate and
basically
Neverwinter
shut
Night
down,
and Dragon Age and a bunch of stuff. And for me it was like, why would I do something when I have to do my own maths, and that was just part of it. I was just like, no, you know what, I'm okay. I don't need to do that. I don't need to, like get into D&D. But in 2010, there was a freak hailstorm, and my girlfriend came in with the book and was like, "We're playing." Playing it, I was immediately hooked. I just fell in love with tabletop role playing, and immediately went and like just chewed up every single book that my partner had, and learned the rules, learned the game, ran my own campaigns, which over time eventually led to me running games for a local youth center.
Okay.
And running it for kids, teaching them how to play, and being able to engage, teaching them basic like reading, writing skills, as well as communication skills, stuff that I think over time we've kind of started drifting away from, and even forgetting when it comes to like education. Like, how do we communicate with one another? How do we problem solve? How do we use the resources we have to solve complicated, very, very delicate social situations? Kids don't get taught that, and TTRPGs was my kind of in for being able to help people express themselves, help kids express themselves in a safe and supportive environment.
I remember you said this earlier today when I was in your stream hanging out, and you said that you started off with just DMing for kids in the community center or youth center for you guys, and it kind of morphed into something more. But why the community center? Why the youth center? Like, why not like start off, doing it for friends or family? Like, why? How did you jump into community center so quickly?
No, I did do it for friends and family and stuff like that. Originally, I had one big campaign that I ran for maybe 3 years, give or take, and had been playing in one other one on and off. By the time I got to the youth center, I was actually staring down the face of unemployment at the time, because it was just a period of time that we were in. There was a building crisis, and I was in engineering, so it was just a case of like, they were, I was like looking at the writing on the wall, and so I was looking out for my options. And I walked into the youth center to literally just, like, hey, I'm a GM for hire. Hey, I'm a GM for hire. Some of the kids might, maybe one of the kids might, maybe some parents would, maybe some parents would. And my boss at the time, they looked at what I had to offer and said, hey, we'll bring you on, run it here as part of our government program. We'll, get you set up and things like that, and see how it goes. And it was great. Honestly, I did not go in for like a job interview. I didn't realize that's what it was. I wore like my track pants. I wore sandals. I wore like a really ripped up like just a nerd shirt because I have cats, and if you've got cats, you
Yeah.
don't have any shirts without tears in them, right?
Not even a
I came
little
in very
bit.
casually without tears.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not how I'd go in for a job, but they gave me one. They turned around and just said, "Yeah, we're gonna take a shot on this guy." You know, he literally, like no intermediary like youth work or experience.
Oh wow.
And it and the chance paid off. I made the program amazing, and it is still to today one of the most successful programs at that youth center, and it really is all thanks to that chance that I was given, which gave me the stability I needed to look at eventually when I go back into entertaining and actually do that, because that's what I wanted to do before all of it. You know, I wanted to be an entertainer, I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be on stage and film. But I developed a medical condition, which was like a hyper photosensitivity. So basically, I couldn't look at any light. I actually couldn't. I couldn't even go outside for about maybe 8 months. I think I had to literally just be in a dark room.
Oh my god.
I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't you couldn't watch TV. Couldn't do anything. So I spent a lot of time with podcasts. That was fun. But yeah, it was.
Oh my god.
It was a wild ride. But inevitably that led me to where I am today, which after having enough money to pay for some treatments and get to see a specialist and stuff like that, I managed to push through and follow the treatments and eventually sort of manage it now. So now I can actually handle like smaller lights, and I can handle going outside again, which is amazing, and I'm so grateful that the youth center gave me that opportunity to
That's amazing.
sort of put myself on that right path again, which is great.
That is amazing, because I mean, suffering from migraines, that's an awful. I mean, I don't know if that's what it is, but I've suffered from migraines for years, and having that level of incapacitation sounds horrendous. My God, I'm glad you're better. So,
Thank you.
how did you transition from? Well, let me go back. You said that you wanted to be an entertainer, that you were originally an actor, and I guess your condition stopped you from being an actor. So how do you meld your acting skills into what you do on Twitch and in the other areas with TTRPGs?
I think for me, because I spent so much time training with film and television and the like, I have a cinematic eye. A lot of what I get a lot of praise for during games and stuff is my descriptions and how into the world I create my character and my scenes, from every kind of kinetic motion that my characters go through to the framing of like where these scenes are. My characters tend to be very aware of the space around them, and that is because of my training as an actor, is that spatial awareness, that understanding of what the plot is going towards and where I fit in that space. A lot of people, when I see people playing a lot of TTRPGs, tend to go through the basics. What am I doing? What is the impact of it? And then what do the abilities and stuff mean? Whereas for me, there is nothing that isn't a story. Everything, even the spells, are open game for storytelling. Just because you, the player, know that the light spell creates a small emanation of light, within a particular radius, doesn't mean it has to be just this ball of light that just glows. You could sort of have a character pull out a small, pouch of dust and start rubbing the dust together, and as their hands begin to glow, blow on the dust to create this like sort of particulate rabbit that begins to bound around the group, leaving a trail of like, light behind them. And that is your light spell.
Just that description alone was super amazing, and was really very picturesque just from you telling that. But your skills as an actor, do you want to remain in the entertainer role, or do you want to go behind the scenes more, or try to produce or direct more? Is that something a goal for you?
I am definitely an egotist. I think I want to do everything. I want to be on camera. I want to be on stage. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to do the art directing. You know, it was one of the things that I always describe as like, this is one of the things that makes me very insufferable. Is I tend to take a ball and I run with it so hard. And yeah, like I've done production, like I've been behind the scenes on a few different games and things like Twitch streams and stuff.
Yep.
Winter's Tales, who's a friend of ours, you know, like they did a holiday thing last year for their launch, and they were on vacation, and I ran their entire Twitch desk for a few weeks, or for a couple of sessions or whatever, and you know, stuff like that has just always been the case. But I always try to push myself a little further and learn something new that I can then bring to my channel and then use for myself as an actor, because I don't have a tech. I don't have someone who's like running my behind the scenes. So everything I need to do, not only do I need to learn how to do it, but I also need to learn how to kind of integrate it into my stuff, so that I can do it without missing a beat on my channel. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's yeah. It's all of its useful skills.
You stream a lot. How do you balance all that streaming and doing the tech stuff, and clearly obviously doing your editing, and clearly obviously organizing games? And how do you do all of that?
The thing is I learned a long time ago that how comes down to willpower, and it always does. You know, the human spirit is stronger than anything I've ever encountered in my life, and I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen everything in between, you know, and the how is easy. The why is really what it makes to it. Why do it? Why am I streaming so often?
Right.
Why am I streaming so often is because I get to be a part of this community, which has really kind of welcomed me and made me feel a part of it. It allows me to express these stories that I've had in my head and in my hand for so long. It also, for some people, it's such an amazing reprieve from just the things that they go through in life and their own journeys, and it's important for me to be able to provide this content not just as a fun way for people to, you know, kind of just enjoy a bit of light entertainment, but to actively feel like a part of something, you know.
Right.
And that's why there's a lot of interactions in my games, because you know, like if you want to watch a really, really good and high quality show and just sit back, have a bag of chips and just watch, great. You know, watch Christian Roll, watch a whole bunch of other people who do these things. Whereas for my channel, it's like for example, yesterday we had, for some reason, someone in chat brought up the fact, it's like, hey, can we name some of the zombies after the chat people? I was like, yeah,
cool.
sure, why not? Let's name them after chat people. And that game went off the freaking rails so quickly. And the chat was suddenly like pitching for zombies. We were telling this undead romance between these zombies who were sacrificing each other's like unlife for each other, and it went wild. And that's the thing. If you know, it's fun, it's entertaining, but like for the people who don't have tables every week, or the people who may not have that friend group and stuff, it's a great outlet to be able to feel like you're still a part of a game and that you're still, you know, invested in these people directly.
Yeah.
And that's a super important element to me and why I do what I do. I want people to feel like they are welcomed in the community, and that they are welcomed in this space, and that there is a place for them, whether or not they have just gotten in and are learning how to play TTRPGs, or if they've been here since the 1970s and you know, can't find a game. You know, everyone's welcome.
Right. When you first started doing TTRPGs and everything, did you ever encounter any pushback from people, specifically because you were a person of color?
So here's the really interesting thing. As a person of color, it's always a very sensitive topic. But for me, I'm actually very, very grateful that in my life I have had very limited difficulties due to my color. It's just it's just the fortune I've had and the blessings I've been given. One I'm thankful for every single day. I remember even when the Black Lives Matter movement started hitting the Australian shores, people were reaching out to me, and you know, as much as I am of course a person of color and proud to be so, I'm one of these people who am more in support of, and much rather people who have had to suffer and who have had to endure the hardships of being a person of color get that kind of support.
Right.
When I came into the industry, I was very welcomed, not only because, of course, I'm a funny guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also because there aren't actually that many people of Southeast Asian descent who are TTRPG streamers. There's very few people with my particular complexion, and it made that unique. In addition, there are very few, at the time at least, there were also still very few Australian streamers. So, there's two bags straight in there.
Right.
And so rather than feeling any pushback, I actually felt really embraced. People really wanted to bring me on and have me as part of this group. And the thing is, and as someone who comes from film and television, I understand demographics. There is a thing about people not wanting to see four middle-aged white guys with beards playing on every single channel that's out there.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me saying so, being a person of color and a woman as well, there's that kind of element of that in it as well, where people will say that, hey, do you want to come and join my stream because you fit a particular demographic?
Right.
And I told myself long ago, is this going to be something that bothers me if someone invites me just because I'm a person of color? And thankfully, like I said, because I've never really struggled with that, I'm like, you know what? If the prejudice exists,
right.
And if people are losing jobs or missing out or being ostracized or put into a minority because of their skin color, god damn it, I can get jobs because I'm a minority.
Right.
I'll take these jobs. I'll wear it gracefully, and I don't mind. And because I get to know a lot of the people I work with very personally. I never put it on them to be the kind of individual to turn around and be like, hey, this person is color, therefore we're going to use him. It's now no, this is Michael. He happens to be in this demographic, but we love him for who he is.
Right.
And that is how I've felt every single time I've been invited to do something.
Do you feel like you have to overachieve to show that you know what you're doing, that you're good at your skill set, and that despite the fact that they brought you in because you're a person of color, that you deserve to be here despite of it, in spite of it, rather?
The truth is that I definitely know that there are some people who have not met me before, who have never encountered me, who definitely get that impression immediately because I do not fit the stereotype of a Dungeons and Dragons GM. That's and it happens once in a while. It's almost refreshing when I meet someone who doesn't know my perspective.
Right.
Right now, however, no, I don't think there's anyone I interact with, or who has invited me to stuff that has ever made me feel like I have to put more in, or that I don't know as much as I do. Even games where, like, I do a lot of stuff with Gen Con TV. Sarah Moore, a wonderful performer, really, really dear friend. She promotes a ton of indie Kickstarter games and stuff like that. And when, if I'm going to ever feel like I don't know what I'm doing, it is definitely with Sarah, because she puts me in games, gives me no explanation, and then goes, all right, let's go.
Oh, man, I love that. That is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. And, it's really good because, I've proven time and time again that I'm very adaptable to these sorts of things. But most people know how many games I run and know how much I play. And, one of the things I value is not, one of the things that irk me is when somebody turns around and says, I've been playing D&D for X years. I'm like, cool, great. That doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
You've been playing D&D for X years. That's wonderful, right? If you've been doing something wrong for X years, that doesn't help me know if you're a good GM or player or whatever.
Right.
What helps me is, how experienced are you? What do you know? And for me, it's like playing 10 to 15 games a week. That's my usual schedule. 10 if it's slow, 15 if I'm busy. Right? And I've done that for the last 8 years. You know, I have been in games, more games than some people will have played in their entire lives.
Yeah.
I have been and participated in games that if you have been playing since the 70s, if you've been playing once a week of any kind of TTRPG, once a week since the 70s, I have played more games than you.
Wow.
So the time isn't important. It's how much experience you have.
Okay.
And the experiences are going to vary. Sometimes you're going to have a great GM who's going to, you know, teach you a lot. Sometimes you're going to have a really crummy GM who's going to make you pick up bad habits, you know,
Right.
like it's just part and parcel of it. But I think everyone who I interact with knows my level of experience, and I don't think anyone turns to me and goes, yeah, Michael doesn't know what he's talking about. At least not unironically.
Well, yeah, anyone who's watched your streams could never say he has no idea what he's talking about. Like, there's no way in the world watching any of your streams anyone could ever say that. But if you had to give someone any type of advice on how to begin becoming a professional game master, what advice would you give that person? Like, someone who has been playing TTRPG, whether D&D or Pathfinder, what advice would you give them to transition from a hobbyist to a professional game master?
In keeping in mind what I just said, you can never be 100% right.
Right.
You can never always have the answer. That's the truth that you would know becoming a professional dungeon master. If you sit there and put people on a pedestal and say that I have to be like this or I have to be of this caliber to be a professional, you're on the wrong track, right? We as individuals are who we are as GMs, and our journey is going to be completely different to everyone else's. That's the important thing to continually remind ourselves and to continually remember. The Matt Mercer effect, which I hate calling it that, but you know, it's the nomenclature as well.
It's what it is.
It is what it is. Because the thing is Matt loves TTRPGs, and the fact that such a negative thing has been named after him is really crappy.
Right.
But for me, the best thing I tell people is there's already a Matt Mercer.
Right.
Don't be Matt Mercer.
Right.
There's already a DeadAussieGamer. Don't be DeadAussieGamer.
Exactly.
What there isn't is you. You and who you are as a role player, as a GM, as a performer. That is who you need to be as a professional game master.
Gotcha. The Matt Mercer effect. I can't stand that phrase, but when you encounter a player or a GM who seems to be engrossed in that effect, as for lack of a better term, how do you mitigate that? How do you get around that to make it an enjoyable experience for everyone else?
I'm not gonna lie, I am such a big personality that I think I actually hold up to the standards that most of the people who have come to my tables with that have actually done. I've had a couple of, not online, but I've had a couple of kids at the youth center come in with the Matt Mercer, like, oh, we're gonna expect, you know, like role playing and voices and acting and stuff like that, and that's what they get. You know, like they get the voices, they get the full gestures. I've actually got a digital whiteboard at the youth center, and I've actually done like you know, like digital maps and stuff like that, where I can like move giant tokens on a big whiteboard for like map making and stuff like that. They get a full experience with me, so they don't complain like at all. The only thing that gets complained about is how many kids there are, like which sucks because, you know,
right.
You know, like I think one of my tables is like 16 kids.
16 on a table.
1-6. Yep.
Wow. That makes my brain hurt.
We call those the one-man epics. And
Holy
they're
crap.
tough. They're tough. They're not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, wow.
And that's after I've actually got an assistant, or no, I've got two assistants, two volunteer assistants who help me and act as my you know, like other GMs for other you know, like tables to help break it down. So we've actually got more kids than that at the program. But every season we kind of like change up like who's running what and which players on what tables and stuff. Give everyone a chance to kind of, play different characters in different styles.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Wow. Like, I 16. I mean, I've had big tables, but it's usually when I at the time was doing corporate tables. But I make sure that they team up on one character. I'm not handling 16 characters for a corporate game. But anyway,
Oh, that's by the way, that's just the regular.
Oh, that's just
the regular.
My top is I had 25 kids at one table once.
25
That was my
kids.
that's my record.
So there's 25 characters. That
Yep.
My God, like that is daunting. 1, 2, they're kids, extra daunting, because children make me itch. I'm just joking. But also 3, they're teenagers mostly, I would expect, right?
Some of them are. Yeah, we have. I think the youngest kid we have at the moment is 13.
Okay.
And the oldest kid we have is, well, I say kid, young person we call them, is 21.
Okay. So there's
21,
a
22. Yeah.
decent level of every time you've created characters, and I've watched you create characters, whether you're doing stuff on Hero Forge or whatever you're doing on your stream. Every single one of your characters, they have a personality, their own voice. How do you do that? Like, I know everyone has their own process, but how do you make each character different and unique?
Well, the uniqueness actually comes from around that character. So, as I was saying earlier on, with me being an actor and stuff and being very spatially aware, the same thing gets applied when I'm looking at my characters during character creation. I have 3 questions which I always ask myself before I make any character. And the first one is, what am I doing in this story? Not like, what am I actually doing, but like, what is the purpose of my character in this tale? Am I the protagonist? Am I the antagonist? Am I the comic relief? Am I the wholesome, like, kind individual to help people work through their issues? Who am I as a role in this adventure?
Right.
The second question I go to is, why am I invested in working with this team? Even if I'm playing an evil character, I need a reason to be teamed up with these people at all times.
Right.
And then lastly, what is my character's motivation to being an adventurer and not just being an NPC? What wakes me up in the morning and says, you need to be out there doing things, doing stuff? And those parameters change every time I sit down at a table.
Wow.
They change based on the characters that are at the table. They change based on the setting. They change based on the story, which is where my variety comes from. Many of my characters do have similarities because sometimes things are just easier,
right.
For example. But because of those slight differences that change in those parameters, they become drastically different people once they evolve into that space, And then other times I just make a hippo with a South African accent. And then other times I just make a
So... the hippo with the South. I mean, I was like I said, I was in your stream earlier, and I was watching you create that assassin character, and just you working through the voice of that character was really interesting to watch. Like, everyone has their, like I said, their process, but your process was very entertaining. And then usually it seems like everything that you do, whether you're interacting with chat or you're running a game, you make it seem to make it as entertaining as you possibly can at every step of the way. Do you feel like you are putting on a show every time, or is that just your natural personality, do you think?
Wow. I think a bit of both. I genuinely love... I'm a people pleaser, and I love being entertaining. I actually am very awkward in person, right? Like,
Really?
I found this out when I went to PAX. I'm such an awkward person because I don't know how people... I feel like I've forgotten how people work. So I was very weird when I met folks. Like I didn't know how physical space worked and stuff like that. Like, those weird guys who like high five you for no reason. You're just like, okay, dude. Yeah, I'm that guy, right? So
That's
it's
awesome.
very strange.
I'm sorry, that's awesome.
Thank you. I love entertaining people. It's one of my passions. It's my love language. And the other side of entertaining is, I always tell myself, this moment right now, just because it's not at the beginning of my show, doesn't mean someone hasn't only just walked into my show.
Right.
So I have to make sure that person feels welcomed. I have to make sure that person feels entertained. I need to make sure that in the span of whatever 30 seconds I have to speak, that person gets to see me.
Right.
And that's why when I'm on a show, I'm kind of always on. I'm always big and, not to a point where I'm overwhelming my fellow co-stars, but like, if this is the first time you're hearing me talk, then this is what you get. You get me at 100,
Right,
and that's
right.
what I bring to every chance I get.
100 all the time. Look, like I said, I've seen, like, every time I've jumped on your stream and watched you running a game or something like that, I've seen you giving always 100%, and you saying that you're awkward in person doesn't jive with what's happening on screen. Like, they don't seem to mesh. Like, that person doesn't seem awkward. That person doesn't seem anti. I want to say anti people.
I think honestly that just comes down to COVID, to be fair.
Yeah.
We adapted. We learned what inside felt like, and now even like going out and meeting people, like I'm currently in my life, I'm looking at meeting brand new people to, like, become friends with in person, like just kind of like actually have people to talk to in person. And I'm finding that super weird. It's like, what do you do?
Hard.
You go to a bar? What do you say to people? Do you say, hi, nice local sports team? I have no idea. Like, the social things that I used to be able to navigate when I was a lot younger just kind of don't exist in the same way, especially as an older person, because like when you're 19, you're like at the clubs and you're at the bar, and then you're at the skate park, and then you're at the pool, Nowadays it's like where do the sad 30-something people
It's
hang
like,
out? Like,
it's
I'll
9 o'clock.
go be with them.
I don't want to go out. It's like it's 9:30. Like, it's getting late.
Yeah, they're not out. And like people look at you weird, and if you go to a cafe and just be like, hey, what's up? What's your name? It's like, oh yeah, cringy. Yeah, like
it's like that makes I have to people. Like, I don't like peopling.
Yeah. Human interaction is kind of like not really where I'm at yet. But you know what? Steve Harvey actually said something which sticks with me a lot, which is success is not comfortable.
Yes.
Success is gross. It's icky. It makes you sweat. It makes you panic. It's stress-inducing. Because if success was comfortable, we'd all have it.
Yes, absolutely.
And that for me was like perfect example. Like, so I'm learning. I'm figuring it out.
Right.
I'm not doing well, but I'll get there.
Look, Steve Harvey has some gems. Like, one of the ones I like from him is like, and I agree, I want my dash on my gravestone to mean something. Like, the beginning is the year I was born, the end is the year I died, but I want that dash in between to be big and mean something. And he has some great gems. Myth says, ask in chat, do you still get anxiety and fear of disappointing your players or your viewers?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think my friend Dredd says it the best, which is we are our own worst critics as content creators, and that's 100% true.
100% true.
And anxiety, and I was talking to someone about this recently. Anxiety is not something that we cure. I don't feel like it is. I feel like it is something we learn to deal with and to accept and then overcome. It's kind of the thing. It's, if you get to a point where that anxiety just doesn't exist, then great, fantastic.
Right.
But if you have that anxiety, the trick is to decide and to, for yourself, make this decision as to how much that's going to stop you from doing stuff. Because anxiety and fear, they're actually not, in its intent, bad things.
Okay.
Anxiety and fear are products of our emotions trying to protect us.
Agreed.
They're trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
You know, and if we shut that off, if we turn that completely off and say, I am never going to feel fear again and never going to feel anxious again, then we don't learn from that. We put ourselves in even more risk than we need to.
Right.
Me being anxious about my audience and me being anxious about my players sucks. It's a horrible feeling, but it means that I work hard to make sure that my players are having a good time, a good experience. It means I work hard to make sure my audience feels connected to my content. And that for me means I've learned to live with my anxiety and like accept it and embrace it and not have it cripple me.
Right.
There are definitely moments where it does get to that point, and sometimes I need help with that. And you know, I highly recommend, you know, if people have that support network, to reach out to them, to have those people who encourage them, lift them up, and help make that anxiety kind of down to that point where you get back to being manageable. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that's where anxiety lives, and that's where I think as a content creator, I try to always keep it that way. If you don't mind me oversharing, because I do walk
Share away.
Tell me to shut up at any point. Earlier this year, I suffered a loss in my family.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
I lost my cat.
Oh.
And it was a very, very hard period of time for me because she was my studio cat. And a few of the audiences had met her and seen her and stuff like that. But anytime I was in the studio, she was always there with me. She was there on my chair. She was there on my hand. She would always like be trying to like touch me like while I was streaming and stuff, just to kind of like know I was there.
Right.
So when she passed away very suddenly earlier this year, those anxieties, those kind of like bugbears that sit in your mind, they were the strongest they've been, and they still are, even now. And it took a lot of my friends, not only my real friends, but also my online friends, people who I'd met, to really help support me, to really help, you know, kind of get me to that point where content creation was, I was able to push that anxiety down, because I didn't realize just how much of that stress was just being taken away by this small furry creature, you know. Like, she did so much for me and my life, that I'll never forget it, and I'll never not appreciate that, and all the people who have helped support me since then. But that's kind of the way I think anxiety is when we do stuff, especially creative stuff. Is it'll come, it'll go, it'll move in waves, it'll change with the time, it'll change with people, it'll change with your circumstances, and you know, and this goes to everyone, by the way. You should never view a moment of anxiety as a defining feature of your life. You know, there will come a time where that anxiety will be different. Maybe it'll be worse, maybe it'll be better. Whatever the case is, it will not be the way it is for you right now forever. And that's super important to help. At least was super important for me to help move forward, to know that it wasn't always going to be that way.
What with COVID and a lot of people who got into GMing and going streaming, even just streaming on Twitch, whether they're just chatting or gamers or everything else, what inspired you to decide to move from the youth center to streaming?
All right, so do you know Guy from How to Be a Great GM?
Yes, I don't know him, but I know him. Yes, I know him.
So he is probably one of my closest friends, like to the same level as Robin Dread. And when I say Guy got me into gaming online, a lot of people are like, you know, oh, you know, like Guy got me into gaming because I watched his channel and his content, and I'm like, no, he literally dragged me into,
oh, really?
into the industry. So I was at the youth center and I had an issue that I needed help with, and you know, with my experience, I knew that if I couldn't solve this, I really needed someone experienced help, right? And you know, Matt Mercer's great and all that, but you know, like people like that, they're entertainers. Guy, however, for me, is someone who I knew had a background that would help me understand the situation I was in. And so I reached out to him and was like, hey, you know, can you help me, you know, suss out this particular situation for my table? I know that you're experienced, and I really, really want to, just have someone experienced to, just kind of throw some ideas with.
Right.
And I booked his time. I spoke for like a couple of hours. We only booked like an hour, but we got on just so well. We just hung out and we did stuff, and he learned that at the time I was not into D&D 5th Ed. I just didn't like it. I was
Really?
in Pathfinder. I didn't want to play 5th Ed.
Really?
And we got into so many arguments over it. And eventually he said, shut up, come and join my table. It's got like 2 people on it, and one of them's a voice actor. You're gonna have a great time. And I was like, all right, fine. I bent over and I was like, all right, well, whatever, fine. We'll give this a go. So when I say he dragged me, I mean, very few people could say that they were dragged into D&D 5th Ed like this.
Wow.
But I had an amazing time, and it taught me that it doesn't matter what you're playing. What matters is the GM and the people that you're with. And I did so well on that table that when Guy started his series Adventures of the Windswift, he invited me on as a cast member and said, hey, do you want to come play with us on this? I said, yeah, of course I do. This is amazing. You and I are having a great time. We're really good friends. I wasn't expecting any money. I wasn't expecting a career. It was just I was playing games with my friends.
Right.
And that voice actor, his name is Freddie Hines, by the way. Again, very, very good friend of mine. He and I were both in that first season. And after getting through that part way, Guy suggested I start my own Twitch channel.
Really?
So
Okay.
I did. Yeah, he said you need to continue doing entertaining. You need to do all this sort of stuff. Prior to that, I had my Oscar Pathfinder Facebook page where I'd been just writing down just some notes on like good gaming practices and stuff like that. It's still up on Facebook. I don't do anything with it anymore, but it's got some really good gems just floating around there.
Okay.
That was it. I basically went from Oscar Pathfinder on Facebook, just writing these blogs just to kind of like get through my time, to Oscar Pathfinder on YouTube and Twitch.
Oh wow. Okay.
Then some time passed, and Guy was invited to do a show for Wizards of the Coast.
Wow.
And when he did that,
Okay.
yeah, it was amazing. It was for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and he reached out to me and said it's got really exciting news. He had this, and the one thing he wanted to tell me was that it was for the European, Australian, Oceanic demographic. Like that was the goal, and he had to like throw up like who he was going to invite to that table. And while I was Oscar Pathfinder, he couldn't invite me to a D&D game.
Right.
So I did some soul searching, and I was like, you know what, Paizo hasn't paid me cent number 1 to do this. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna drop the Oscar Pathfinder stuff and become DeadAussieGamer. And DeadAussieGamer, the acronym being DAG, because DAG is kind of like it's basically a term for a twit in Australia. Like,
Really?
If you're an idiot, you're a dag. It's like, you bloody dag. That's kind of a thing. So it worked, and it was really funny. And then I was invited to do Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and that was the kind of start of the DeadAussieGamer. Was that leap from asking for advice to being brought on to play D&D to being on a show to then being told like, hey, do your own channel, and then come back and now play with Wizards of the Coast. And that was like kind of where D&D, Twitch streaming and all that sort of stuff kind of came for me.
Right. Wow. Okay. So you had said, and it's blowing my mind a little bit, that you did not like 5e. Seriously?
Yep. No, seriously. I was introduced to D&D 3.5. And then when 4th edition happened, I played 4th edition, and I hated it so much, and a lot of people did.
Blasphemy.
Look, 4th Ed is fine for the people who were in 4th Ed. For me, I just felt like I had like what was effectively like 4 or 5 years of like content cut from underneath my feet, and I didn't like it. So I put it aside, and I said, nope, I'm gonna play this. And then Pathfinder came out, and it continued the trend of like the D&D stuff, and like 3.5 materials, and it was backwards compatible and all this other stuff. So I got into Pathfinder super heavy. Then when 5th Ed came out, by that stage, including the 3.5 material and the Pathfinder material, there was nothing that 5e was offering me that I wasn't already having. In fact, it had less. And what annoyed me was that the rules, the empty spaces where rules should be, were a point of frustration for me because it was like, oh, it's so versatile. It's like, it's not versatile. It's missing the rules. It means that your GM has to be a really good GM.
Right.
And that's fine. But like, if your GM is making up rules to accommodate it within the system, that's not a good point for the system. You know, I think the best example of this was I walked into a dungeon. I hit a trap. An arrow shot me in the chest. And it was a dex saving throw. And I was like, what do you mean it's a dex saving throw?
You shouldn't.
Like, yeah, you didn't dodge it. But I'm wearing full plate. Yeah, okay, but you didn't dodge it. But I'm wearing full plate. Like, does my armor mean nothing for this trap? Because otherwise we're going to be in very, very, you know, like, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. It's like, well, there's no actual rules for, like, you know, arrow traps. It's just, this is the dex saves for traps. And it's like, you know, like I said, stuff like that is like traps. Not having rules for it just bugged me. It irritated me.
So you never thought, like, I always thought 5e as a director's cut, like a director's like dream, like being able to GM and direct, you know, make up your own home rules and stuff as you go. So 5e for me was just like, oh, this is great, I can do what I want. Whereas I love 4e. I've always loved 4e. I feel like 4e gave me the rules I needed without the anxiety of 3.5. Because 3.5 gave me anxiety.
Look, I'm not going to deny 3.5 was a whole thing.
Yeah, it was traumatic for me. But
yeah, but here's the thing. For me, 5th edition, the idea of the director entirely bases on the director. You know, Yui Boll is a director, right? I would not say that that's a good thing, right?
True.
He has made some absolute piles of dog shit in his actual career.
Yeah.
And that's just Yui Boll. That's just he's known for it. And for me, I don't attribute the system for the skills of a good GM.
Okay.
That's just not. I'll never do that. The thing that won me over for 5th Ed, though, was that it made the RPGs more accessible to people who weren't experienced. And that's where it belongs for me. I don't want to isolate or ostracize people from this thing I love. And if I want to introduce you, I don't want to introduce you to, like, you know, 40, 50 books worth of Pathfinder material, right? I want to introduce you to this small, really, really cozy little game that you're going to have a great time with. It's going to hit all those points. And then, you know, after maybe a couple of games, a few campaigns, if you want to try something a bit more crunchy, if you want to try something with a little bit more versatility and, you know, some extra mechanics and stuff, great, let's look at Pathfinder then. It's like, you know, it's like playing on easy mode, medium mode, and hard mode. You know, you want easy mode, go play Powered by the Apocalypse. You want medium mode, play D&D 5th Ed. If you want a hard mode, yeah, go check out Pathfinder or like freaking Shadowrun if you feel like, you know, I don't know, chopping off your ears.
So in my career, I've run a few Shadowrun tables, and when I say the bane of my existence is Shadowrun, the bane of my existence is Shadowrun. It is so hard to manage, and the mechanics of it and the way it works is not intuitive, not even a little bit.
Nope. Actually, you'll appreciate this. I had a character. My only Shadowrun character was a troll underground boxer who had crossed the mafia and had his arms removed by a corporation and replaced with robot arms.
Okay.
Right? So he was a big, chunky boy, and he was then banned from the boxing circuit and then had to go into like underground street fighting and stuff like that. He was like the muscle of our particular crew. These guys were robbing a high-tech place, and we were hired to protect it. And we had one guy in the van who was like, you know, the tech guy, and we had a mage who was like driving the car and kind of like, you know, keeping everything a bit. And I had to go and deal with stuff. So I walk in, and the first thing that comes up is the tech turns around and says, there's several blocks of C4 on the door in front of you. Hang on, give me like a minute and I can reroute it and disable these bombs. And I said, no time. And I turned my fist and I punched the wall. And the GM turned to me and was like, you actually did more damage than the C4. So it actually doesn't have the force to blow and deal damage to you. So it actually blows back upon the people who had set it. And I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I smashed in this door. These people were burning. And I was like, big troll coming in. This guy had a heavy gun mounted on a big truck, started ramming ramming into me with these barrage of like anti-vehicle bullets.
Wow.
I was taking some damage, but because I had like dermal skin, armor and stuff like that, you know, it was like little bits of damage here and there. But being a troll, start climbing onto the back of this wagon, basically bend the nose of this gun, start clobbering the people in the back. The guy in the car takes off, and our car takes off to go and follow. What then happens, keeping in mind, I have now borne several blocks of C4 and an anti-vehicle machine gun. The wizard is driving the car and casts a sleep spell on the other driver.
Okay.
So the other driver falls asleep and veers into a building.
Okay.
Now, evidently, crashing rules in Shadowrun are based damage on the larger of the colliding objects. And when you collide into a skyscraper, I was almost instantly wiped off the board.
Yeah. I was waiting for it.
We crashed into the building, and it's the size difference between a ute or a small truck and a building was so different. And this guy just grabs this big fistful of dice and just and we're just like, what? How is this car crash more damage than C4? How is this more damage than this armor-piercing machine gun?
The rules.
What the hell? What would have happened if I drove my bike into this building?
Instant
Do
death.
people just explode?
It's instant death, but at a level of disgustingness, depending on the imagination of the GM. That's what it would be like. It's this
little 10-year-old, right, like scooting around on this tiny little scooter, just like, you know, hits a tree, and then, you know, suddenly there's just this funeral. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I just
Shadowrun's
couldn't
hard.
get it.
It's people. Most people are just like, wait, what? I just tripped. What do you mean I'm dead? Like what? Like,
oh well, you see, you collided with the Earth, and the Earth is several tens of thousands of times larger than
So going forward, what do you see the future of your career as a game master on Twitch as specifically?
It's very hard. Honestly, look, finances on Twitch and stuff are difficult. We live in an age where technology and mass communication are constantly evolving and constantly moving forward, which means that anyone who isn't keeping up is falling behind. And it means that certain channels are standing out while others are being left kind of in the dark. Social media is a huge push for this sort of stuff. And to be honest, for my channel, while it is only me, I think I'm going to keep growing steadily as I am right now. My hope is that for my career, I'm going to start doing a lot more collaborative pieces with other content creators and actually find myself a good nest egg with a group of people who I can then help, not just as a content creator, but also as just a part of a team, which is how I am currently with my team over at Careful Cantrip. They're a wonderful group of performers who I've come to love very, very dearly. I enjoy playing in their campaign, which we do on Tuesday nights for the US folks and Wednesday morning for me. And I want to see their success as a performance studio group. In addition, I'm also with Quincy's Tavern as well. So exact same sort of thing there is, you know, Quincy's already so famous in and of his own right. But we've got like a big event in Utah next year, and going in there and actually getting to meet all these other content creators and actually perform live in front of an audience and stuff like that is gonna be amazing.
Right.
And that's what I want for myself in my career, is I want to be able to be a part of these different groups, to be able to go and do live shows, to actually eventually get to a point where it's literally the same as me being a professional actor, is people you know, pay me to go onto your show, play for 12 episodes, you know, talk about the show, you know, do things like that. That's kind of like the dream goal.
Right.
My channel will always be a place just to hang out with me.
Right.
That's where I always want that to be. I want my channel to always feel like a place to be able to interact directly with me, not as a business, not as a, you know, Twitch messages of like, you know, hey, I like your face, you know, like but actually places where people can come and actually have a genuine conversation.
How important is the community aspect of your channel is to you? Like, is content creating more important, or is the community coming together more important for you during your streams?
Prior to this, I mean, last couple of months, I think it has been definitely the community. I am trying currently to push for partner on Twitch.
Okay.
At least I will be very soon. And at that point, I will be looking heavily at like just making the content to get those numbers up. Because once you're partner, that's it. You don't need to like keep being partner. You just are.
Right.
So that's my biggest goal is if I can get to partner on Twitch, that'd be amazing. And I want to focus on that content until that point. But after that's done, then back to just the community, just basically giving people something to really enjoy and have fun with.
So you, part of your community, you, for Patreon, I know that you, for your Patreon subscribers, you run games for them regularly. Have they transitioned from becoming givers to friends? Like, have you transitioned that from people who pay you to run games for them? Have they become friends now, where you could say, not only are they a Patreon, but they're my friend, they're part of my community, but they're also somebody who I enjoy being around?
No, I hate them all. So this is an interesting question, and I'm gonna be very honest with you guys, because I'm honest about everything I say. There is a very difficult parasocial hierarchy that needs to be observed, especially when you're a content creator. The people who I interact with, my fans, the community, and stuff like that, there is always a length between myself in my personal life and everyone around me, because we live in a place where mass communication is a huge thing, and people have very rarely the time and energy for more than, say, 10 people in their close circle of friends to be able to interact with, to have a part of your life, to be an active part of that life. And between there and the audience is another space of people who are very familiar.
Right.
And I would put you in this category as well. People who, if they ask me for things, I will give them the time of day. I will chat, I will say hi. You don't need to come to me with business. You can just, have a very casual chat with me. That's great. Does it mean I will give you my home address? Probably not.
No.
You know what I mean? Does it mean, if you're in town, that we can go have ice cream? Absolutely, 100%. I've got no problem with that. And that's kind of where that space is. There's this point of you being supportive of my channel enough, and me having known and interacted with you enough that I am familiar and comfortable to be able to interact in that way with you. All of my Patreons are in this field.
Okay.
Something that isn't very well known about my Patreons, and we don't advertise this, this is actually the first time I'm actually announcing it live, and that is there have been many times where my Patreons have reached financial troubles and haven't been able to support me for a particular month. I have told them to cancel my subscription, but then not kick them out of the game.
Oh, wow.
Because for me, it's more important that that person, especially when they're having financial trouble, is having that support and that enjoyment from those games. I know I shouldn't be doing that. I know that deep down that I shouldn't be doing that. But for me, it's like, this is like very much the definition of who I am as a person, is that TTRPGs are there to help us when our chips are down, and that's and who would I be if, when you have no money, if I kicked you to the curb? Like, that's just not it. So yeah, and I mean, it's happened a couple of times. I've only had one person really take the piss, and he literally had like a free ride for literally a year before I put him out of the out of that game, because like he was affording a new house, and then he got laid off, and there was a whole bunch of other stuff. But like literally after 1 year, I was like, dude, this is like, it's rough.
Advantage.
The siege is there, and
Yeah.
it was rough. And then I said, look, even if you can get to one of the lower tiers, that'd be fine. But then he kind of ghosted me, so I was like, all right, well, that kind of sucked, but whatever.
So
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, no, look, I mean, that's just always been my case, and the Patreons have always been one of the reasons why I can focus on the community, because with all my with all the Patreon games that that support my channel, it means that I like anything that I earn from like donations or from interactions, all of that just goes directly back into the channel, because I have what I need to validate the time slot already covered by my Patreons.
Right. How do you handle streamer stress? Streamer stress is a real thing. Like, how do you handle streamer fatigue, streamer stress, and not getting burned out from doing so many streams for so many times a day? You know, I see you multiple times a day. My running joke is like, do you ever sleep? Like, I've said that multiple times in stream, like, sleep, dag. So how do you and that's usually your answer. How do you handle streamer stress? How do you mitigate that for yourself so you're not getting burned out?
So this is an easy question for me, because it is, first of all, one of the questions I get asked the most, I think, and that is anytime I feel burnout. There's a letter that I have from one of my kids' parents. This letter basically just outlines the kind of individual that this kid was before actually interacting with my D&D games. This person is on the spectrum and would literally come to the youth center because their parent would drop them off. They would have headphones in, have their iPad, and would like never engage with anyone. To the point where they wouldn't even say hello to the staff that was there that knew them for like 4 years. And this kid wasn't actually talking to them until he got into the D&D games and started playing and interacting and stuff like that. And there was a huge dynamic shift. Not only did they start talking to other people, they started interacting with the staff. Parents were just so moved because they were genuinely concerned for this kid, and said that now he has something to look forward to. Now he's got just this thing that he's just so passionate about. You know, and he's been engaging in a whole bunch of other stuff, like even community work, you know, inspired by the fact that I've been doing stuff in my community. For that, he's been looking at doing community stuff for like people who are on the spectrum and offering support. Anytime I feel burnout, I pull out that letter and I read it. And that sense of appreciation, that genuine fact that, you know, one game can make that kind of difference to someone. Right. For me, gives me like just a rush. It gives me just all the spirit I need to do it again, you know. And that I've never had burnout, to be fair. And it is entirely thanks to my work that I've done, all the charitable work with like the youth center stuff. And it also really helps that a lot of the games I play are with my really close friends who I don't get to see. You know, one of the toughest things about going to PAX this year was the fact that, you know, it was actually the first time that Dread and Rob and I had actually met in person, and it showed me almost immediately just how much I had been missing from my life, you know. And for me, these interactions, these games, you know, it doesn't matter if it's like at 2 a.m. or like, you know, 5 a.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever. You know, the reason I accept these, the reason I jump into these is because these are those memorable moments. These are my connecting moments to these people that I want to spend time with. And you know, like that's where it all comes from. I don't make any money from, I don't think I actually make any, besides the Quincy's Tavern one, I actually make no money from any of my appearances on other shows. Really? I do it because, yeah, no, absolutely. I don't, I do it because these are my friends. These are the people who are closest to me, and these are who I want to just be with and hang out. And these are the people whose success I work hard for. I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 people, you know, 3 streamers. There's 3 streamers off the top of my head that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot, who we have a friendly and a business relationship where where that's been a thing. But there have been countless others where it's been, no, I'm going to come on your stream, you're going to come on my stream, and then vice versa, and then we're just going to trade in echo chambers. We're going to
Right,
trade
exactly.
you're going to bring your people over here, and I'm going to bring your people over
Right,
there.
right.
And that's fine for friends, like. Definitely one of those things that are friend exclusive, or people, like I said, in that kind of parasocial boundary. But there are definitely people who I've looked at and I've turned around and been like, I don't want to do this because, this will just add to a bunch of the stress that I'm under. This will add to a bunch of the like already full schedule that I have, and I just can't make it.
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me saying, if this stream was done by anyone else, I probably would have turned it down.
Really?
Absolutely. Not because it would be someone I haven't worked with before. I've actually got tomorrow. I've got Careful Cantrip. Thursday, I've got AJ. I've got AJ's anniversary stream coming up, and then at like 3 a.m. I've got Guy. We're talking about Dragonlance. Then Friday, I've got a meeting about some merch stuff. Yes, Myth. I'm talking about merch with someone. And then Saturday, I've got my finale for Spelljammer, my youth center work, and then a Saturday night finale. Plus Sunday, I've got my game with Rob, and I might be on call for Quincy's Tavern, maybe. I don't know. Might happen, might not. But we'll see.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. Sleep. Dag.
Never. But yeah, no. But like I said, if it was anyone else, this is just such a busy week. But like I said, me doing this means that I get to interact with you, and that's important to me because, like I said, you've supported my community. You've made me feel valuable, and like my content is worthwhile. And when you ask me to do something like this, that part of my brain that says like this is stress or this is work, it goes away immediately. It's no, I get to hang out with Sam. I get to have an actual meaningful conversation like just with you and your community and your fans, and that for me is super important. So that's why I'm here. Like I don't know, it's like I said, the streamer stress is real. Yeah. And you've just got to pick and choose. You've got to really kind of get to that point in your life where you're like, where is my limit? Right. What is going to burn me out?
What does your family think of all this? Like, I know that you're married, but what does your family, immediate and extended, think about all of this? I know my family have no idea what D&D is. They look at me like I'm crazy, and they think I'm talking to myself in a small room in the house. I'm just happy they don't have me committed. But what does your family think about all of this?
Fair. So one addendum. I'm not married.
Oh, I thought you were
married. I have a partner that I've been with. No, I've been with my partner for 13 years though. So I mean, pretty much everyone, whenever we're not, we're like, it's effectively married at that point.
Pretty much.
But she is very confused by what I do, because she's the one who taught me how to play D&D in the first place.
Really?
And it still blows her mind that I have people who she has looked up to as a kid, like really getting into the D&D scene. I have some of these people on speed dial, and she's she just blows her mind.
Right.
Especially when I'm on a call with one of them and then I introduce them and then she's just like, what the hell? I just spoke with which is always a lot of fun. My parents, they don't quite get it. They kind of put me in the vein of like he's an actor or he's a bohemian, so it's kind of like, he's doing his thing, he's happy at least. Right. But I don't actually get on that very well. I don't get on very well with family. Family's not a very talked about thing for me, just because like just histories and all that sort of stuff. My cousins think I'm some sort of rock star.
Really?
Because it's like, oh, Michael the actor who has his own house and like has fans and goes to like conventions where people want his autograph, and I'm like, I mean, like maybe like 7 people. I mean, like
it's still 7 people. I will say this true. Over and over again. 7 people is 7 people that you didn't have a few months ago. That's still 7 people who know you and want your autograph, and that's amazing.
That's very true. It's very true, and I do appreciate those 7 people very, very much. It is not underappreciated, but the reaction that they give is very much like Like, I don't know if this is pity or not.
So,
I'll accept it.
take what you can get, and you never know. So, here's a question. I always wondered, like, I know for me, I love doing things off the cuff. So for you, whether it's Pathfinder or D&D, rules as written or rules as intended?
I want to opt for option 3. Rules as needed.
Okay, that's a new one.
So here's the thing. Rules as written implies a lack of responsibility on the GM's part. Like, I am not responsible for what is happening because these are the rules as written.
Right.
Okay, sure. Rules as intended. I am the GM, and I can tell you what was meant by this rule. Really? Can you tell us that, though? Do you really know? I mean, I understand that the raw mechanic may not be right, and that maybe it should have been done this way, and that's what you believe, and that's great. You know? Rules as needed. I am happy to bend, break, and shift rules as long as it's something that's going to add enjoyment and joy to my games.
Agreed.
I do this a lot with my hero point system, where you can petition the GM for stuff, and even if you aren't allowed to do things like backflip off a building, throw a rain of shurikens down, and land on a roof nearby, you know, even if you don't have the actions to do that, screw it, let's make it happen. That sounds really cool.
Right.
You know, what benefit is there going to be for me saying you have to follow rules as written or rules as intended? These are neither things that are going to help me in that situation, which is why I opt for rules as needed, because right and then and there, I need rules to facilitate what my players need and what my players want to do in that particular moment.
Do you recommend them GMing first or playing first?
I think playing first. I think as a GM, the biggest skill you have is being able to interpret and understand your fellow players, right? And I don't think you can do that well without being in their chair literally and seeing what it's like from that perspective. I've definitely played in games with GMs who have just picked up the book and GM'd, and they can do fine. They do all right. But it has a very narrative, like, this is the story I want to tell, and you guys are just here to listen to that story. It's what I call cardboard world, where there's a party at the edge of town, and the king is going, and while the king is away, you have to go and save the princess from a dragon. Cool, can we go check out that party? You need an invitation. All right, where do we get an invitation? Oh, Lord Canterbury has it. Okay, Lord Canterbury has it. Let's go see Lord Canterbury and get a ticket. You go to Lord Canterbury's house. Oh, he's away. Where is he? He's out on mission to something. Oh, all right. Well, do you know when he'll be back? No, we don't know when he'll be back. Okay, well, hey, let's break in and steal this ticket. Oh, there's like 16 guards around here, right? This is cardboard world.
Yes.
Where there isn't actually something behind the screen, but the GM builds it around you. Very, very weakly.
Right.
That cardboard world is a very, very common thing for GMs who have never played before. Right. Because they don't know what to expect, and they're trying to tell their story, because that's what they believe GMs do. Right. You know, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that type of game. I want to point that out. But if they play and if they get to see exactly how much you can actually do stuff with RPGs and things, I think they become straight away much better GMs from session 1. Even if it's just a one-shot, they already straight away a lot better.
But when you get a new player who wants to, after sitting in a few sessions with you, wants to decide to GM, how do you help them on their path to becoming a dungeon master?
I don't know. Like I said, I think the biggest thing I do is I try to encourage them to go with their ideas and to not stress about making the right decision, but making a decision and then dealing with the consequences as they arise. Because as I said before, you know, like, I can teach you how to be me, but you don't want to be me. Yeah. You don't want to, you know, run things the way I run it, because there are many different aspects of my life that you and I don't share that won't be able to support you in the way that it supports me when I run my games. Right. What you need to look at is what supports you and your particular style, and then hone that and polish that and make that really shine. And it'll be different to what you see on my channel, but it'll still be good.
If you had a choice, and I usually ask every person who I've interviewed this question, if you could GM for someone, dead, alive, fictional or real, what would that party look like? Who would sit at that table?
All right, I know the first one immediately. The first one immediately is Robin Williams. 100%.
Yes. Oh my God. Nice choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Without a single shred of doubt in my mind, would definitely be Robin Williams. He was a hero to me, both as a performer and as a human being. And I would have loved the opportunity to sit down around a table and actually play a game with him.
Yeah.
My second player would be Alan Rickman, I think.
Really?
Another great mind that I think the world lost too soon. Alan Rickman, for me, I think he is the kind of individual who would have gone. First of all, he would have just gone so deep into the story and to the game and had a lot of fun with it. But then also thinking about him beside someone like Robin Williams, I would just love to have seen that dynamic between the two of them and just how they would have interacted. That would have been just amazing. The third person, I'm not gonna lie, it's Rob. It definitely has to be Rob. Yeah, it is Rob. Rob is like one of my closest friends. I definitely love Rob, and I think he would just be amazing on that table with these people. And I mean, how many seats? Are we having like 4 tables or five seats?
Let's say 7. That's right.
7.
Yeah.
Okay. 7. All right, we'll say 7. All right. Guy straight away again, and Dread. I'm gonna say,
of course.
Guy, yeah, because Dread for me is again just such a wholesome soul,
fantastic storyteller.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and he has such a mood of chaos around, and I think the people at that table will just be the kind that embrace that, which I think would be amazing. Guy for me is someone who has just a caliber of performance that always makes me do better. So whenever I play with Guy, I always feel like I'm GMing better than I've ever GM'd.
Right.
So he is definitely in that list. Janet from World Anvil. She's the CEO of World Anvil. She's another very, very dear friend of mine. And Janet is basically like another version of me.
Okay.
Born in a different body. This very bizarre and lovely woman. And you know what? Like, whenever I write a game, I always write it for myself.
Right.
So it's kind of like this person is like my conduit, somebody who I could see appreciating the game in the same way that I would. Last on that seat, I think would have to be Deborah Ann Wall.
Really?
Yeah, she is just a absolute delight to watch as a GM, and she has so many like really amazing ideas and story beats that if you watched any of her one shots or any of her shows with like the Geeks and Sundry guys and all that, you can absolutely just see just how creative how she can be. And to see what she can do on one of my games would be an absolute pleasure. Like, just getting to actually see how that creativity just sets a fire under her character and interacts with these people. And I think looking at the 7 of them, every single one of them brings something very different to the table.
Yes.
And I think each of those people would uplift and make each other better and have a lot of fun doing so.
That table sounds like the interaction would be not only dynamically interesting as actors and entertainers, but also just as individuals they would bring something completely different individually. So that would be something amazing to see. I wish it would happen. That would have been amazing to have happened. We had talked about earlier about how the community is able to come together and how tight-knit the D&D community or TTRPG community in general is. With the resurgence of BIPOC movies like Black Panther, Lord of the Rings, a bunch of other different movies and TV specials. Do you see Pathfinder and D&D becoming more mainstream for and opening up a world for people of color, in the Blur community in particular? Do you see that happening within the TTRPG community at all?
The truth is I hope so. I really do. I would be lying if I didn't say that I think maybe the mainstream has started to level out a little bit. I think we lived, like during COVID, I think we lived in an era where the necessity of learning how to survive indoors created a great environment for things like that to become popular. Stranger Things, Matt Mercer, wherever you want to attribute that surge to come from, we all had to learn how to do indoor stuff, and D&D was of course one of the very popular ones. As mainstream media started to absorb a lot of different cultures and started to accept the fact that hey, there are so many different angles and avenues that we can explore in terms of like representing people of color and how to do that. I think seeing stuff like Black Panther was amazing. And hopefully we will continue to see stuff like that. Like a lot of the Jordan Peele movies and things like that really give me a lot of hope that the mainstream media has learned that people want to see a lot more stuff like that. But as far as Dungeons and Dragons goes specifically, I think it is petering out until there is another big hit. Great example of this is the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Great at launch. We heard all about it. It was on everyone's lips. It was on everyone's tongues. We did all the things. But when was the last time you heard anyone talk about it?
You
know what I mean? Like
hardly at all, actually. Like I used to do
exactly the point.
I used to do a segment of news where I would do gaming news, whether it's TTRPGs, video games. I would do the news for everything, and I haven't seen or heard anything in my compiling of information about the D&D movie, which is interesting to see, but kind of daunting if you are a professional game master who want to do this for a living, or even to do this part-time for a living. What was your thoughts on? I try to be delicate. I don't normally end up being delicate about
don't be delicate.
Exactly.
I'm Australian. We are.
Don't be delicate.
Just go for it.
All right. So, what was your thoughts behind?
It's your channel. I mean,
what were your thoughts behind when people were giving pushback, racist pushback, about seeing people of color in Lord of the Rings resurgence with the Rings of Power, and seeing Game of Thrones, seeing people of color playing characters? What did you think of that? Hashtag Night Skills.
Oh yeah, look, I think there are people who just have way too much fucking time on their hands. And honestly, loud, bigoted people are always going to be exactly that. You know, like for every loud person there is shouting at the top of their lungs about people of color, like represented in things that are effectively medieval, there's, like 50, 60 different people who are just shutting the hell up and enjoying the fact that there are wonderful and amazing actors and actresses of color who are in these shows doing an absolutely banger job, absolutely killing it in this field. And there's always going to be that pushback from the incels. There's always going to be that pushback from the hate groups and stuff like that. And it's really weird. I don't have enough time in my life to hate these people. I pity them. I definitely feel as though it's exhausting. That's literally the only word I can say, is that even giving them the time to sort of give their attention to these protests, to these people screaming at the wall, right, just feels exhausting. And I look at that and I'm just like, you know what, guys, if you enjoyed Ring of Power, just enjoy Ring of Power. Who cares? I had a moment, I think it was in Bridgerton, I think, or one of those like really old-timey things where it was like the queen is a black person, and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, it took me like 2 seconds. It was like first of all, it was like oh, that's the queen. But it never became like an issue. It was just that momentary adjustment.
I mean, it was weird for me because one, I read every Bridgerton book. I've known it for years and years and years. I've known about it. I've read them over and over again. I have a secret passion for romance novels. Don't judge me. But Shonda wasn't the first person to do this. It was done with Doctor Who. And I believe it was the 11th Doctor, where the Queen was a black woman. She was future, but she was still black. So I don't understand why people are so weirdly judgmental. But do you plan on the stories that you have in Pathfinder, D&D, the stuff that you run? Do you plan on writing them down as stories, actual stories like novels, or leaving them the way they are as games?
I want to leave them as they are as games. I think what I'd like to do, and I've been tossing around this idea for a while, is I would definitely love one day to make these into like little journal entries and like scatter them around my world, so that if my group finds like oh, actually a good example of this, one of my groups hunted down a basilisk egg and had used it in order to try and create a potion of stone to flesh. And instead of actually making like just a potion, they turned it into like an eggs benedict, kind of an actual meal.
Oh wow.
So now in my world there is a recipe book that has these kind of recipes from that particular character, but there's also these cliff notes on their journey about how they actually were cursed with undeath, and the only reason they stumbled across this was because he believed that his tongue may have been paralyzed, and so made this basilisk recipe in order to try and unparalyze his tongue to get that sense of taste back, so that he could cook again.
Right.
And so that story is in like just like this little Easter egg that you could find somewhere in my world if appropriate. Like you find this cookbook, it's old and dusty and worn out in like this library, or
It's amazing.
maybe there's this, or there's actually a in another one of my games, somebody actually got a mimic and actually tamed it and turned it into a necklace.
Oh wow.
And maybe somewhere in my game they might find it again, maybe 50-60 years after the adventurer who had it passed away. It made its way into a shop of curios, and the mimic has basically just been dormant until recently. So yeah, lots of little things. I don't think I'll turn it into a novel, but I think that my world will always be expanding, my actual like world, with these stories that happen as they go.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds like I would see. I don't know if you're very much into video games, but in a lot of video games they do that, where you find books, specifically Skyrim, books about certain stories and lore. That sounds like something that would be amazing for players to have to be able to find, if they could find something about the lore of another table session that had nothing to do with them. That sounds pretty cool, Mythax, in terms of culture and representation, where would you say homage stops and appropriation starts?
Cultural representation always comes down to the effort that you put in. If you put in no effort, and apologies because we will be making some stereotypical references here, but understand they're not my beliefs, they are just examples. Let's say that I want to play a Mexican character. If I am playing a Mexican character and I decide to just put on a voice and have a sombrero and a poncho and then always take my siestas at 1 p.m., right? That is a very negative cultural stereotype. That is something very toxic, and definitely something that that isn't appropriate. The same thing could be said about positive racial stereotypes. So the same thing if I'm Asian and I'm really good at maths.
Yeah.
Exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
These things go into one category. The appropriation is where we are ignorant to the thing that we are appropriating. So unlike one where we're taking a stereotype and then turning that into this is how I'm representing this culture, the next one is I am now taking nothing and making it into the culture. So what do I know about it? I'm going to have a character who is Japanese, and I'm a samurai. I wear samurai armor, I wield a samurai sword, but that's it. It's like, well, what is your Bushido code?
Yeah.
Who is the master that you serve?
Right.
Like what is the honorifics of your family? Like these are elements that you would need to know in order for it not to be cultural appropriation.
Right.
in fact, and this again goes into one of my games. I have a game on Fridays which I run, which is the Ruby Phoenix, which is an Asian-inspired game, and one of my players wanted to play a ninja, and he gave me this design, and it was this whitewashed redhead ninja, and I said no straight away.
Yeah.
Because for me, that is cultural appropriation, because it showed no understanding of the ninja ways of life. It showed, like, especially the culture thing of, like, being, like, kind of like, we're playing in an Asian game and you want to play a redhead. Like, it's just
That's not how that works.
Yeah. Right. But he was very understanding, and eventually he became the son of a magistrate who was a very inquisitive individual and a spy who could move in and out of places very, very easily. So that shinobi stuff kind of got put a little bit back and became less about being a Naruto ninja kind of thing, and became more of a, this person is now that. So that for me was cultural appropriation being elevated into, once more of that education happened, once more of that culture was understood,
right,
it became a more appropriate character.
Okay.
So that for me is the breakdown, right? If you are using a stereotype, you're way out. If you are just ignorant of it, then that's not great, but you can learn more and be better.
Right.
The third one is where you are representing. If you're representing something, that means you've done the diligent work, you've put things together, and you've actually made something, really, really, like, respectful. Then it doesn't matter, what skin color you have. It doesn't matter what culture you belong to. It's not cultural appropriation.
Right.
It's like me saying, like, especially in a fantasy world, it's like me doing a Scottish accent for a dwarf, right? Like, it's not me culturally appropriating Scottish people. It's me giving a voice to these dwarves.
Right.
It's if I'm playing a Spanish mariachi player who is a bard who wants to learn how to sing but comes from a culture that doesn't allow him to, I'm ripping off Coco, right? But I'm not culturally appropriating, if that makes sense.
I understand.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's a very, very fine line, and you need to tread it very carefully. Only, and I want to stress this, only if you're performing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If you're at a table with 4 of your friends and you decide that you want to play the redhead ninja thing, great, go ahead. Who's gonna stop you? You've got literally the people who are closest to you, who are friends, who understand that you're not trying to do some cultural appropriation stuff. It's fine behind closed doors, with your friends. But if you're in the online space, if you are on Twitch, if you are public about this sort of stuff, then you have to be mindful. It's not an option. It is, you do need to.
I'm so happy I got to finally talk to you in person. Kind of not, for real. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you had a good time. And I
did. I had an amazing time. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully this will not be the last time we get to interact together on stream.
I hope not. I mean, I would love to have you again.